Brendan, before we get over to our positional draft of the offseason for the Chicago Bears, we're hearing a lot of news. I'm sure it's going to matriculate and get even more clear who's going to be in, who's going to be out by the time this rolls on Thursday, but the combine is right around the corner. It seems like a lot of guys that the Chicago Bears have their eyes on may not even be there, may not throw. Certainly you hope a lot of these guys interview, and I think that process is going to go down. Are you more interested? I'm just going to give you kind of a door number one, door number two. Would you be more interested in the reports that Caleb Williams and the Bears have met and everything is going great, or the other one that's been floated around that maybe there are the first steps of the bones of a possible Justin Fields trade? Which one do you think could be more likely? Which one do you think you might be personally more looking forward to hear about?
Well, I feel it's tough because I don't want Justin Fields to go. I think we talked about this, like, in my heart, I wish things would work out a little bit different. He could stay and the Bears could take those leaps. I don't know if it's actually going to happen though. So I am going to be a little bit sad, like, if and when those conversations start coming up and you start to hear that, he's going to be moving on. So I don't know if I'm like as excited about that. It's more like, well, this is a necessary thing that has to happen. So I'd kind of be interested to see like them starting to meet with Caleb Williams and kind of how those conversations are going, what they thought of him. I'm curious if they're going to do that same game mentality or sort of thing during their interviews that they had last year. If you remember, they had prospects come in and start playing darts or golf and just kind of like get them loosened up and show their competitive side a little bit as well. So I'm curious to see what that strategy looks like too, to see, what it looks like with some of these prospects. But I'd much rather hear how the conversations are going with the rookie quarterback than sort of just pushing the other one out the door, because that's still sad to me. I don't know how you feel.
Look, I'm a Justin Fields fan. I agree with a lot of people that don't like Justin Fields, that I think that the numbers and production could have been better. But I think we're going to get into that a little bit in just a second here when we talk about off-season positional needs. And start to say to ourselves that, I don't think Justin was the problem. Was he part of the problem? I think you can say those two things at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've just been trying to pour over as much Caleb Williams tape as I personally can over the last couple of weeks, and I will continue to do that throughout the next month. We were lucky enough to have LA Football Network's USC insider Ryan Dyrud on the show last week, talking a little bit about some of the off the field stuff. And he did not back away. That he said, in the same interview, that Caleb Williams was the most wonderful, exciting, fantastic football player that he has ever covered and that he has ever watched, not only at USC, but, just kind of in his life, because he's a young kid and all the fantastic things that he did on the field, while also saying that the skipping of the interviews and not talking to the press, he took issue with that. He says a big part of the background with USC is that they pride themselves on coaching and teaching these kids how to be thoughtful and professional with the media. They feel like that is a skill that not only helps them as athletes, but helps them out throughout the course of the rest of their life. And is something that they really, really harp on there. And the fact that Caleb missed a couple of interviews, snapped back at moments. I mean, we can chalk that up to immaturity, but still something that he didn't walk away from and gloss over and said, it will be an issue that he'll have to, grow out of, clean up, however you want to phrase it, when he moves on to the NFL. So to hear some reports that, I don't know, that Caleb and Ryan Poles played Connect Four together, and are best buds and are, whatever it is that checks that box. I think that's probably one of the most important parts of this process for the Chicago Bears moving forward, because, I mean, you'd agree, Brendan, that is that kind of it. I mean, the tape is the tape. His abilities are undeniable. The potential is as high as the sky. But some of the personality stuff, maybe that is one of the few things that I have a question about. Is that fair? That maybe that's one of the last boxes for you?
For sure. And I think it is for any player, really. I mean, Caleb Williams gets put under a microscope for obvious reasons, but Poles said it himself in his year-end presser. Like, we have to figure out the guy, like what makes them tick, learn more about them, get to know them personally and see just sort of how they'd be as a fit. That's what happened last year with Jalen Carter. And they essentially gave Carter a lot of opportunities to show them he could be the guy that could come into this locker room and be a consummate pro while also transforming their defensive line. The talent was never an issue, but it was the stuff behind the scenes. Now, granted, the stuff with Williams is not even close to being that, but as a quarterback and as a leader and somebody, I totally forgot. I'm not going to lie. I completely forgot about missing some of those press conferences or interviews, not talking to the media. And that does rub me the wrong way a little bit too, because you have to be accountable in the good times and the bad. And it's not going to get any easier in Chicago. I don't know if you noticed, but media is a little tough around here. So that's not going to fly. And I know Poles knows that too. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what those conversations look like, and maybe get some nuggets on how the interview process went, and maybe we'll even get some of Caleb Williams talking to the press later on this week, and he'll answer some of those questions like, well, I don't want to make an excuse for him, but maybe he'll give an excuse or give a valid reason, or show contrition on things that happened and show that he is a different player moving forward into this next step of his career.
Yeah, and look, this doesn't have to do with wins and losses, and I think that's what Chicago Bears fans care the most about. But if you want to piss a Chicago Bears fan or a Chicago sports fan off, you get in front of a microphone and you pass the buck onto somebody else, or you point the finger at anyone but yourself, especially when you're the quarterback in Chicago. Brendan, let's transition. Let's move over right now. I'm excited to do this. We're just going to have a fun little draft of what we think the Bears' most important positional offseason needs are. I think just to make things a little easier, we just did the quarterback position. So let's just all admit that the Chicago quarterback position is important. It's been important since I was born in the mid 80s. It continues to be important today. So I'm trying to look at other spots on this team to help this team compete, no matter who the quarterback is for the Chicago Bears next year. If you want, I will be Lovie Smith here, and I will blow it in the fourth quarter, and I will go out and give you the number one pick if you want it. Would you like to be on the clock here? What do you think the most important positional need is for the Chicago Bears this offseason?
That's a dirty trick. You're just trying to put me on the spot so you can take the easier one. Because I think I think there's three big ones and maybe like a distant fourth. So I'll be interested to kind of see what you think. I'm
happy to go first. I'm happy.
No, I want to take the challenge. You're giving me the ball and I want to score. I will go with, you know what? I'm going to take the easy one. I'm going to say wide receiver just because of how one-dimensional.
It's mine. That's my one too.
Yeah, don't overthink it. They did a great job, obviously, addressing it last year with DJ Moore, but it was only DJ Moore last year because for whatever reason, whether you want to blame some of the receivers, you want to blame the play calling, you want to blame Justin Fields, it was all a problem where it was way too focused on DJ Moore. I mean, I think I totaled it up. It had to have been either 40% of the Bears receiving yards total.
So I got the numbers right here. If you don't mind, I'll provide a quick context.
Yeah.
I might not have that percentage exactly. So for the Chicago Bears last year, there were 321 receptions as a team last year. DJ Moore accounted for 93 of those. If you added Cole Kmet's 73 receptions, that's 169 out of 321 team receptions, good for over 53% of all team receptions last year. That's a high mark, okay? To go even further, though, if you take a look at, let's just say, who were the other receivers that actually caught a pass, not tight end, not running back, receiver, there were only 61 receptions out of 321 team receptions from anyone as a wide receiver not named DJ Moore and a player not named Cole Kmet, which is only at 19%. Unfortunately, I had to count the 4 receptions for Chase Claypool because it's math, and my anger has nothing to do with me wanting to exclude him from math. But yeah, just to add that context right there, I mean, Darnell Mooney only had 31 receptions, and then after that, it plummets down to Tyler Scott at 17. So you're right. It was incredibly top heavy last year.
I made a tweet going into the summer last year saying Boy, I really hope this offense doesn't look like the 2012 offense where just Jay Cutler pummeled Brandon Marshall with targets and literally nobody else got it. And I'm like, I'm just joking. That's not going to happen. And guess what? It happened, which was so surprising. But the good news is there's tons of options. We talked a little bit about some of the draft picks with Adunze and Neighbors. I think obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., assuming the Bears take a quarterback first overall and they keep their ninth pick, he's going to be off the board. So you're hoping that one of Neighbors or Dunze could be available. I'm also really high on Keon Coleman out of Florida State, probably in the second round. He just made some incredible plays the last 2 years. I know his route running needs a little bit of work, but he comes in as a big frame, really good hands. I think he's somebody that could be a really good asset. And God, if the Bears somehow got a second round pick back and maybe missed out on one of those big 3 wide receivers, he would be somebody I'd be looking at. And then of course, free agency, you got guys like Calvin Ridley, Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd. I'm really interested in because I think it'd be a really reliable third option, assuming you go with a rookie wide receiver. And I know I'm curious of your opinion on this. I know we got to get to the other picks. Calvin Ridley's been somebody who's been sort of like, speculated that he could go to the Bears. Did you realize, guess how old Calvin Ridley is?
26?
29.
29. Oh,
yeah. Can you believe that? He's like 2.5 years older than DJ Moore. They were in the same class in 2018. And so not that Calvin Ridley's going to fall off, but like given his up and down season, the fact he's a little bit older, I don't know if I want to pay him big money, get somebody a little bit cheaper, and then go, really go gangbusters with somebody in the draft and build those 3 with DJ Moore and get yourself a much better receiving core.
I feel like we have a like-minded approach to this where I think we are really, I'm focusing on hopefully having one of those receivers available for us at 9. If we stay at 9 and it shakes out just the way that it's playing out right now. I love Malik Neighbors to death. I don't know if he'll be there. Fingers crossed for him. Adunze will also be there. But I think you're feeling the same way that I am, is it can't just be one guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, we need multiple receivers not named DJ Moore and Tyler Scott in camp next year that can contribute right away. I know a lot of people like to give a lot of pat on the back to Darnell Mooney. I thought that he was a very solid player for us a couple of years ago. I just don't remember us building up Darnell Mooney. I don't remember us building up Earl Bennett the same way that we build up Darnell Mooney as a guy who I think can be probably a really, really, really good 4, maybe a solid 3. That's probably it in terms of my ceiling, in terms of what I think with production-wise. I don't think that when you have an off-season ankle surgery and you come into camp, I think it's hard to run on all cylinders from that front. So I think we're in agreement here that even if you drafted someone, I think you need to have multiple players in camp that can do some things. And I'm with you a little bit. Calvin Ridley kind of scares me. Curtis Samuel, he's not going to end up on anybody's fantasy team, but obviously I think he's someone that could definitely help you. Tyler Boyd, for sure. T. Higgins got franchise tagged. Just to round out the topic before we move on to the next pick, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, they don't do anything for you? Do you think that that's maybe just not the right timing, Chicago Bears-wise, for the money that they'll have to make?
Well, I think Pittman's going to stay with Indy. I cannot see, if they somehow let him go in free agency, that's going to be a terrible move because they need somebody like that to build around. And then Mike Evans, I think he'd obviously be a great addition. Why would you want to come to Chicago, though, when you're most likely building around a rookie quarterback and you're getting up there in age, you've had a ton of production, you want to win another Super Bowl. And also, for as good as he is, he had a lot of drops last year. Not the same Mike Evans. I don't know. So I'd much rather roll the dice on somebody a little bit cheaper in free agency. Somebody you don't need to rely on as that big, like number 2, and then get somebody in the draft like we talked about.